We're on Chapter 4, Lesson 6, Divide Whole Numbers by Fractions. Please turn with me to page 305. What do we need to know about this? Well, we need to know copy, dot, flop, which I'll talk about in a minute, which means multiply by the reciprocal. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is learn what a reciprocal is. So let's look at the vocabulary. So we know that any two numbers with a product of 1 are called reciprocals. So what we're doing is basically flipping the number. When we have a whole number, so in this case we have 1/2, the reciprocal is flipping it. Always think of whole numbers over 1. The 2 over 2 cancel out, 1 over 1, which makes 1. So the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2. 2/3. What is the reciprocal of 2/3? Well, again, I've got to make a 1, so the 3's cancel out, the 2's cancel out. I'm flipping the number, so the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. 3/2. Describe the relationship between them. They're opposite. So when I end up crossing them out, this guy crosses out on a diagonal, which leaves you 1. Okay, let's look at the real world problem. Alright, another name for reciprocal is multiplicative inverse. What are some everyday word language that are similar to this? Flip. That's why we use copy, dot, flop, or flop. And again, if you're talking about aviation and airplanes, when you invert, it means you're upside down. Upside down. Okay, turn the page. Let's start the lesson. Alright, so we're going to find the reciprocals of numbers. Dividing 3 by 1/2 gives you the same result as multiplying 3 by 2, which is the reciprocal of 1/2. So basically what we're saying is if I set this up, 3 divided, let me start that over. 3 divided by 1/2 is equal to 6, which is equal to 3 times 2. Why? Because these two numbers right here are called reciprocals, and they produce the same answer. Okay, so example number 1. Find the reciprocal of 2/3. All we're going to do is flip them upside down and we get 3/2. Find the reciprocal of 1 over 8 is 8 over 1, or simply 8. Now, let's talk about this real quickly. The reciprocals must either be whole numbers or fractions. And I don't care if the fraction is a proper fraction or an improper fraction. Please do not make them mixed numbers. Mixed numbers do not work as reciprocals, because the whole point of this is that we're going to be able to use the number in a division problem. So no mixed numbers. Emphasize that. No mixed numbers. Alright, let's look at the other problem. Okay, so now we need to find the reciprocal of 5. When we think about 5, we need to write it as a fraction. Any whole number can be written as a fraction by placing it over 1. So in this case, 5 is the same as saying 5 over 1. So if I know that 5 over 1 and I need to get an answer of 1, then all I'm going to do is flip it and get 1/5. So I know the reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. So 5's reciprocal is 1/5. That is not remainder. We're going to use that as reciprocal this year because we don't do remainders in middle school. We'll either solve problems as fractions or solve problems as decimals. Alright, now it's your turn. See you in a minute. Pause the video. Did you get what I got? Flipping 3/5 produces 5/3. Flipping 1/3 produces 3, and flipping 11 produces 1/11. Again, for number C, I placed a 1 underneath 11 so that when I flipped it, I actually saw that I needed to include that 1. Turn the page. Okay, so dividing by fractions. To divide a whole number by a fraction, multiply by its reciprocal. So, copy, dot, flop. Copy the first, change your division to multiplication, and flop or flip the second term. Is the same thing as saying multiply by the reciprocal. Alright, so in example number 4, find 2 divided by 1/3. Down here, again, we're not going to do the model drawing, we're going to go to the problem. We have 2 over 1 divided by 1 over 3. Now, what I see people doing a lot is trying to take their problem and start messing with it, and the next thing you know, you don't know what your problem is. Please do not do that. Leave your problem alone and do your work below or beside it. Copy, dot, flop. Copy, dot, flop. So the answer is 6. Okay, let's look at the next problem. So 7 divided by 2/3. So we're going to write 7 over 1, copy, dot, flop. Change that, and then invert the 2/3 to 3/2. So again, we look for relationships. In this case, 2 does not go into 7, and 1 and 3 aren't going to do anything. So I'm just going to multiply across. 7 times 3 is 21. 1 times 2 is 2. That goes into it 10 whole times with a remainder of 1/2. Okay, now it's your turn. See you in a minute. Pause the video. Did you get what I got? I got 18, 7.5, and 5 1/3. Now, let's just talk about this really quickly. Notice that in my problems, I made the numerator, or the first number, into a fraction by just placing it over 1. It just helps visually to make it into a fraction. And again, I did not work on the problem. I copied out, flopped, or multiplied by the reciprocal underneath the problem. And I say that because if I looked at number F real quick, I could say, oh look, that crosses out, so the answer is 3. Because I didn't do anything but just look for relationships, and then the next thing I know, I have the wrong answer. This is incorrect. The answer to this particular problem is 5 1/3. So again, always leave the problem pure. Do your work underneath the problem. That will prevent you from making silly mistakes. Turn the page. At summer camp, the duration of the field hockey game is 3/4 of an hour. The camp counselor has set 6 hours aside. How many games can be played? Okay, when I see a word problem like this, I know that my answer has to be a whole number. So that's very important. So if I set it up incorrectly, so if I just said, oh, let's read it left to right and set it up. 3/4 into means I have to divide by 6, and then I copy dot flop, 3/4 times 1 over 6, oh, that goes into it 2 times. I would get 1/8. So I'm going to have 1/8 games. Does that logically make sense? No, the answer does not make sense. So again, the order in which you set up a problem is not based on I see 3/4 first and I see 6 seconds. 6 seconds. It's based on logic. I have 6 hours for the whole time, and I need to divide it into 3/4 segments. So it's 6 divided by 3/4. 6 times 4 over 3. Look for relationships. In this case, it's 2, so I get the whole number 8. And 8, I was looking for a whole number. I got a whole number. That makes sense. All right, time for you to do the guided practice. See you when you're done. Pause the video. Okay, the first ones are easy because all you're doing is flipping them. Remember, on number 3, you need to place a 1 under the 4, so when you flip it, you get 1/4. And then number 7, again, it says how many lots. So you knew you had to get a whole number. I got 6 lots. So again, always think about that. And lastly, why are you going to get these smaller numbers? Because you're dividing into smaller parts. Okay, thank you. See you soon.